Hello and welcome to LOPR Radio Aftershock for Night 2 of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom event live from the Tokyo Dome. Wrestle Kingdom 14, main evented by Kazuchika Okada versus Tetsuya Naito. And before I'm going to throw it to Jan now and then test all of the stuff. So Jan's going to have to waffle for a little bit at 5 in the morning. He's lucky it's not 6. So say hello to XanMan.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestle Kingdom's Aftershock show. You know, this was originally planned to be a three-way weave, but unfortunately, unlike yesterday morning, Jeff was unable to join us because when the servers got overloaded and the feed cut out, Jeff was one of those few people that just could not get back on. You know, my Kindle Fire TV app shut down, and I texted him and I asked him if his was working. He said no, and it wasn't working on his phone. So I grabbed my laptop and I tried my laptop and I got right in. But I was probably like 12 minutes later I got in, but he was unable to, like, even an hour later. So it's just me and Imp this morning, and Jeff will be giving his thoughts tomorrow night after he has a chance to watch the replay while we do Kingdom of Honor. And you know, yesterday I said that that because of those multi-man matches at the beginning of the show, it didn't really feel like a Wrestle Kingdom to me. It felt like a standard New Japan show during the year. And today I felt completely the opposite. Today I feel like this felt like Wrestle Kingdom to me. Yeah, it's on January 5th. It's the second night. It's not the usual January 4th show, but every single match on the card had important implications. They all had grudge match things going on, even the Liger retirement match. You know, there was high emotions going on and big stakes in every single one of the matches. Almost all of them were title matches, but even the ones that weren't, again, high stakes going on. And I felt like, you know, this show is what Wrestle Kingdom is every single year, and it was spectacular.
Yes, 100% agree. It was... Because there's a type of thing normally when they've done 2 nights before, like the first night doesn't always attract as many people because they're like, oh, all the important stuff will happen on the second one. And with this night, it did feel like it had built really, really well because there's quite a few reservations going into how it would actually feel on the night with the double dash for the gold. It worked amazingly, I think it's fair to say. And it left on a real high. Just ended on an amazing note that you got that Wrestle Kingdom feeling. Personally, for me, that was kind of missing last year. I didn't get that same Wrestle Kingdom feeling I did last year as I have on. It still ended on an amazing high, but it wasn't the same amazing high that I've had with different Wrestle Kingdoms. This year, they did it. They nailed it. Just such a fantastic note to end on for me.
That depends on where you shut the show off at. If you shut the show off right after Naito won, then yes, you ended on an amazing high. If you kept on watching the aftermath, then you kind of got brought right back down to earth by Kenta.
I'm personally fine with that. It's one of those where for me, if it didn't quite work, it could have like completely flipped the ending to a major negative. But for me, it didn't quite do that purely because Kenta is so hated that it worked. Like, and it's not a random thing that they've never done before in New Japan. This isn't a damn you, Harold, Medge. Like, it's not that. It has been done before in New Japan, and this was one of the better versions of it. Obviously, with the big example being when Okada walked out to challenge Tanahashi, and that wasn't exactly met with thunderous applause. It took like a month or two before that was actually accepted as a good thing. Like long term, we look back on that, and it's quite a moment. I'm assuming at the time it was like, what the hell's this dickhead doing? It's just like he's had a shit match with Yoshihashi, and now he's challenging for the title. What is he doing? But yeah, this time it was somewhat similar, where Kenta had lost to Goto, didn't have momentum, then came out and destroyed. But it didn't affect my overall feelings of the show. Overall, I massively enjoyed myself. The final match was incredible. I was just tweeting out at the time, like, I found it just amazing. Like, this is why I love wrestling. Like, this match is such a fantastic example, and that's the feeling Wrestle Kingdom gives me most years. But when it ends, it just there's that heartwarming feeling of, that's why I love this. It's just awesome to end on such a note. What did you feel overall about the entire show?
I agree. I mean, I felt like like last year with Tanahashi beating Omega, I didn't feel that way. The year before with Naito falling short to Okada, I didn't quite feel that way. Although I felt like fantastic shows top to bottom. This year, Naito, almost a carbon copy of the ending from last year, but yet Naito this time doesn't screw up and actually, I should say from 2 years ago, that doesn't screw up and actually gets the Destino, gets the victory in the middle of the ring over Okada. Finally chases those demons, and then not only that, but after the match is over, before the title presentation, he says to Okada the same thing Okada said to him. We need to do this again sometime. So
yeah, and
it was great, and then but even like the entire show, the match between Ibushi and White was great. Jericho beating Tanahashi by tapping him out shocked the hell out of me. The great technical masterpiece again between ZSJ and Sonata. The junior heavyweight tag was great. I mean, there was just so much greatness on this show. You meant, we talked about Kenta a little bit already, but Kenta versus Goto to me was good, but it was probably the thing I liked the least on the show. So I mean, and when that was probably still a 3.5-star match, you're talking about right up there with the way Wrestle Kingdom should be, unlike what I felt about half of last night's show.
Yeah, for me, I totally agree with you. This was the Wrestle Kingdom I am used to. I've seen a few people online saying they preferred Night 1. For me, Night 1 had an amazing end with I guess, as we're talking about yesterday, it was more of a normal Japanese, normal NJPW kind of card format. This was a normal Wrestle Kingdom card format. And it was... And for me, I got right into it. Sudden realization after the Juice Thunder Liger tag match with Hiromu. There's that sudden realization of oh crap, from here on out, it's the massive stretch of you got all of the titles on the line, and then you got Tanahashi Jericho, and then it's the main event. It's just of course MJ White Ibushi as well. It's just oh crap, we're only on the second match, and it's an incredible stretch from here on out. It's just a run of fantastic matches, and I agree with Jan again as well. For me, Goto Kenta, I was kind of enjoying it. Loved the ending. I thought the ending sequences were fantastic. Really built it up. Yeah. And when we're calling that our least favourite match of the night, that's more of a testament to how great the show was. Just overall. For us going, this really fun match where we loved the ending was our least favourite. That's fantastic to say.
Honestly, Jericho Tanahashi is kind of on that same level for me as well. But yeah, I mean, and where these matches are telling a good story, but then it's really at the end it gets really intense, and the ending sequence really catches you.
Yeah.
And it's just great.
Yeah. So. Also, some quick messages in the chat already. Sir Sam's popped in to say, what a match, in the moment greatest match I've ever seen. The crowd was so internet? The crowd was so into it. And sorry to me, it's directing to me now. Oh, and Imp, bad news, we lost badly. Alright, so that's in our prediction contest against the Keeping It Strong style boys. I had an amazing run yesterday of predicting all of the tag matches incorrect. Amazing streak. We were going in with a disadvantage. So apparently I didn't do that well today either. So I'm obviously the New Japan expert. I know what I'm talking about. I've shown it here by predicting almost everything incorrectly. Well done, me. I reckon it was Jericho Tanahashi that broke me. Damn it. Yes.
Well, did you also have Juice going over Moxley?
I did have Juice going over Moxley. Yeah. I think I went with a lot of the bets that I guess if you asked most people, they probably would have gone with me in terms of if you did a percentage of thoughts and whatnot. I kind of felt like I was in a similar position to a lot of people where I was always predicting Naito to win, trusting Gedo. I was calling for Ibushi to beat White as well. I was thinking it would be a consolation prize, whatnot, and that match escalated amazingly. Like I preferred that. For me, that was a much better Jay White match than yesterday's. Yesterday's was one of those where I found it really plodding with now and then flashes and a great ending. Whilst this match was I preferred it over the G1 match as well. I thought it was just a much improved match. Maybe I was saving stuff for night 2. Because that the other side as well was, you wouldn't know it watching Okada versus Ibushi, but they were saving themselves for a second match, which is
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't blame you for picking Ibushi to beat White. I kind of felt the same way, but then in retrospect, it was booked perfectly where Ibushi, was dominant, was winning the match, and so he comes out looking really strong because he should have won the match, but yet White cheats his way to victory like he almost always does, and so both guys end up looking really strong and looking like top contenders, and yet neither one of them is going to be the top contender because of fucking Kenta.
Well, I guess the ultimate test, like as a European fan, I am aware of this test. I've been through it quite often, given that I do Aftershocks as well now. The ultimate test of how much you enjoyed the show. You have had the European fan WrestleMania weekend experience, where the shows start in the middle of the night and you're doing the live Aftershock show into daytime. The question is, are you currently feeling absolutely knackered, or are you feeling hyped from the show that you've seen?
Half and half.
Half and half. Say that it's 5 a.m. It's a little bit later than when I'd normally be doing this. But I'd say that means it was a success. It means the show's kept you awake. But me doing the WWE shows, so I'll go live at 4 a.m. and I'm kind of like, right, let's get this finished then. It's just so I can go to bed. Let's get it done with. I always look forward to talking about New Japan. Wrestle Kingdom does so much to hype me up, and it doesn't hurt that I don't have to stay awake till a crazy time. I instead have to wake up at a crazy time. So I'm not sure which is worse, because the show started at 5 a.m. for me, so it was an early wake up call. I wasn't having it, at all. I think I prefer it to staying up though.
As you know, I don't follow WWE at all anymore. But thinking back, over the last several years of watching it, there was hardly any WWE main event, I didn't kind of roll my eyes at the result. So I think that makes it a bit harder to stay up when you're not really enthralled with what's going on. Whereas in New Japan, especially on big shows like Dominion and, well, not last year's Dominion because Jericho versus Okada wasn't very good, but for the most part, when you the big shows like the G1 final or King of Pro Wrestling or Dominion or Wrestle Kingdom, you're super hyped at the end of it, and then you're ready to go.
And Twitter is a light as well. It's really nice just to see people, just an outpour of emotion on Twitter after Naito's victory. And when Kenta was attacking, for me that was the deciding thing. I'll pop on Twitter, see what the reaction is. Is it totally negative or where is it? And it was a lot of the responses of it's like they were reacting within the world, just full of people genuinely angry at Kenta, not pissed at New Japan. And there's a massive difference there. That is, with Western fans as well, where we're used to a certain thing and we might kind of correlate to how a different promotion might have done it and gone, oh, I don't like this because it made me hate the person there. But this is the difference when I criticise a Baron Corbin thing and it's oh, it's meant to get heat. This is the difference. Kenta, you're angry at Kenta. You're not angry at the writers for making Kenta do it or writing Kenta to do it. You are angry at Kenta, the character. You're booing him. You are Rocky and Gino did a fantastic job where when Rocky was talking he just sat there yeah, you're right, Rocky. What a dickhead. This wasn't the time.
Even more than that, what it made me mad at the entire Bullet Club. It makes Bullet Club monster heels there because he's not even the top guy in Bullet Club and he's going out there and doing that tonight.
Yeah. Even Jay White is no, I've got my opportunity. I don't need to do anything like that. But yeah, for me that was the massive difference of comparing it to another different kinds of massive heat type of things we've seen over the course of this past year. this was for me a fantastic example. New Japan, to be fair, with most of their ways of generating heat, they're all really good examples where you don't boo New Japan, you're booing the character. That means that they've nailed it. They nailed it with Kenta, they nailed it with Jay White. El Phantasmo, Jesus Christ, we'll get to him later. I'm loving the way that he generates heat. It's just so much positivity and so much of it related to Bullet Club at the moment. Before we lose energy, let's actually talk about Okada versus Naito, the main event of the night. I guess, given how long the match was, we won't go through absolutely everything, but what was your feelings towards Okada versus Naito?
I thought it was absolutely great. I saw some criticism from our buddy Mario about how Naito again wasn't selling the knee very well, but usually like in the process in the course of a match, I don't think about that kind of stuff. I might think about it later on down the road, and I know it's something that Jeff focuses on quite a bit. But to me, just watching the athleticism, watching those guys tell the story they were telling, I mean, would it have been a better story if Naito was selling the knee more? I don't think so. I mean, Okada hardly focused on the knee whatsoever. It wasn't like he was putting him in, figure fours or scorpions or an STF. He would slam the knee a bit, but it wasn't like it was a focus. It was more like the standard Okada offense. And so, Naito coming back from the Rainmakers and blocking the repeated pile driver attempts and blocking the the move that beat both Sonata at King of Pro Wrestling and really beat Ibushi last night, that kind of drop down version of the Tombstone, and being able to fight out of that and finally hit the Stardust Press and then finish it off with Destino, and even having to hit two real Destinos and one of the running Destinos to win it was just spectacular. I mean, it was great perseverance by Naito, and I think that we get caught up on somebody's got an injured body part and he needs to sell it, but if that really isn't factored into the story, then I don't think it really matters whether they're selling that shit or not. And I thought that these guys really took it to each other, and I thought they did a great job of having callbacks to the finish of 2 years ago, when Naito had his second opportunity to win the championship against Okada at Wrestle Kingdom and failed. Failed because of this hubris the last time around, and then that hubris coming back, but this time not biting him in the ass and being able to survive it against the greatest IWGP Heavyweight Champion of all time was a fantastic story in its own right, and I thought the match did a great job showing how evenly matched these guys finally are.
Yeah, and I loved how they structured it with with Naito going back to the well of the past, of moments where he had failed, or I guess from the previous matches where things had gone badly for him or turned the match, a mistake that he had made. Like the best example being the Stardust Press, where he's brought it up in the past. Like I think in the last match it was to prove that the Stardust Genius wasn't a failure, and that kind of then led to his downfall. I guess when he was Stardust Genius, it was the same thing when he went for those moves. That's kind of where it started to fall apart. In this match, when he went for the Stardust Press, Chris Charlton's commentary was amazing in that moment. Just 100% making sure that in the past this was an issue for Naito, like him doing this, and he's like, no, don't do it, Naito, don't do it. And to say it used to be his finisher, so he hit that move a lot over the years. That is probably the best he's ever hit at Stardust Press. That was beautiful, just on point, fantastic, and he got a genuine near fall shock out of me, which is it's kind of of course he's never winning with that move, but he hit it so damn well in the moment. I didn't care, and I was brought in, and the momentum of the match beforehand as well. Just they did it with Okada as well. With it's not just the things that issues Naito had in the past. It was things that had worked for Okada, and Naito was either countering them or it wasn't enough. Again, obviously, in an Okada match, the counters were incredible. It was an Okada main event where it slowly builds. You get your flashes early on, you get your big outside moment. In this case, it was the knee. Then you get back into the ring, and the flashes become more frequent. an event until the end when it's just constant. It's just an insane pace. And again, just like we're talking about with yesterday's Okada versus Ibushi, it reached a point where a lot of matches might end at that 30-minute mark where they've done that kind of formula. Then Okada does a further 10-15 minutes at that pace. It's just insane. Afterwards, he can't help it but be at such a kind of hyped level. It's just because they managed to keep that level of hype and never let it die down. And for me, that's the moment where both men feel on that level battlefield. They feel level. They like equals. That's what Okada and Ibushi, again, they nailed for me yesterday. Did the same thing here. In that final stretch, legitimately, either man can win. And you've got no idea which one it was. So when they start taking risks because nothing's working, you start to get nervous. It's like, well, we've seen at this moment last time, that's when Naito started to dive into the well a little bit too much and came up short. So when he dove into that well again, it's just like, oh, fantastic callbacks. I loved the structure of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. The only callback they didn't do, which I was waiting for, was the Cobra Clutch. I was waiting for that Cobra Clutch to pop out. Because it was such a big focus in the last time they faced each other for the championship.
But you you got a main event cravat. Just to really bump everybody. I saw some people tweeting about that as well. It's like, huzzah, main event cravat. Oh, they know what us fans like. It's just, thank you, Naito. But yeah, absolutely amazing main event. For me, this is what New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom is and are all about. Just so hyped after watching this. All of the stars, just all of them.
I can't go that far because I can't agree with Sir Sam that it's the greatest match of all I've ever seen, because I mean that still is going to always probably be Okada versus Omega from Dominion for me. But
for me, it's possibly my favourite with niche categories on top of it. It's my favourite kind of long-term arc over the course of 7 years where they absolutely nailed the payoff whilst also referencing the entire journey at the same time, and they put that all into one match. I feel like it's my favourite match with those niche categories on it. Because
it's definitely my favourite match I've ever seen on January 5th of any year. And it's my favorite match ever when both the Intercontinental title and the IJPW title were on the line in the same match.
And don't at him. You can't change his mind. It's his favourite. It's definitely up there. Like, it's going to be, normally with New Japan, whenever we watch Wrestle Kingdom, we're kind of like, well, that's going to be match of the year. Really what it means is it sets the bar for main events down the line. Yeah. So, when we had Okada versus Omega, we had an even better match at Dominion, which is crazy to say. When you looked at Twitter now, especially how I was feeling after that main event, it's kind of like, my God, I've just seen one of the greatest matches of all time. 6 months I'd see one that I thought was better, which is insane. They do that quite often.
But that's the thing, is that all three of their matches, well, 3 out of their 4 matches are 3 of the greatest matches you've ever seen that have ever been. So.
And to be fair, their first match isn't bad. It was it obviously just wasn't the main event. So the extra 10 minutes that Okada does in the main event, he didn't do that because it wasn't the main event. So it was, it was perfectly fine, but it works really well in the kind of the building of the layers, where you've got that first match with the failure of Naito and Okada just kind of continues. Then you've got Naito as LIJ Naito built up, and his previous loss is still in his mind. This time he's properly overcome his demons and can finally do it. I love it. It's such a long arc as well, and as a Western fan, when we hear the word long arc, we think, 6 months, 1 year, maybe, like with John Cena and The Rock. To us, that is a long arc. Daniel Bryan as well. To us, his technically started in the summer, then it ended at WrestleMania 30. For us, that's a long arc. This has been 7 years. That is a long arc. 7 years is because I've talked about it before, but in New Japan, when I say a character arc, quite often that's over the course of an entire career, and Naito is a fantastic example of that. It's not just one part of it. His journey to become champion has been his major arc over everything, and he's only just accomplished it now. That journey started in 2013 technically they were laying the groundwork before with stuff like the Genius versus Genius match from like an earlier Wrestle Kingdom where he faced Keiji Muto, because they were pushing him as the next Tanahashi, and Tanahashi was like that generation's Keiji Muto, so it kind of made sense to do Genius versus Genius. It didn't work. Essentially, he was building fine. You know the story of that Wrestle Kingdom beforehand. But yeah, a story that's been going on that long, and for the payoff to be nailed that strongly, that is so rare to see that. And so that's why I could put it in my niche category of like best payoff match for a narrative that's been going on for 7 years straight. It's
right. And it had to be against Okada, and it had to be him beating Okada for it because of their history and just the history of Okada himself. And just looking back at the last year and a half, since July 16th of 2018, Okada has lost exactly 5 singles matches to exactly 5 guys, and Naito is now the 5th guy to beat him in a year and a half. So it's just beating Okada is just such an important thing for anybody in New Japan to do right now in a one-on-one match.
And that's the payoff for making the champion that strong. Like
exactly.
when you book him that strong and he has that few losses, when he does lose, it means something. And that's why you have to be very careful with who you pick to beat him as well. Like the plans they had for the people they've done it, especially with like Naito and Kenny Omega, they had big plans for both of those men. So when it happens, it pushes them up the card, sets them up, they are ready for that. Ibushi as well, he beat Okada in the G1. That set him up for future things as well. Sanada, early on, he beat Okada. Like that, like in one of his first G1s as well. Like it sets everything up for the future, and there's meaning behind it when it happens. It's not just like a flash in the pan, or we need to build up. We need to make the opponent feel credible for that year's biggest show. It's like, no, this is like long-term thinking. We're establishing our top guys. We're making people stars so that we've got draws for the company. Like that kind of long-term big thinking. And they've got a megastar in Naito.
Right, and even those 5 matches, like Tanahashi beat Okada in the finals of G1 2018 to set up the World Championship. White beat Okada at Wrestle Kingdom to set up him winning the World Championship. Ibushi beat Okada to get his shot at Wrestle Kingdom this year. Naito beat Okada to be the first ever double champion, and finally culminate that story that's been going on for such a long time. And Sonata beating him at the G1 this past year is just another step on the rise of Sonata to that high level. So.
And my favourite part of it was the outpouring of emotion. On Twitter, there are quite a few people saying that they weren't even really Naito fans, but they were like watery-eyed at how, just at the story and everything, they were so invested in it. And those who were Naito fans, like Reikash, who I had on the show on Thursday, he was just posting GIFs, like, wasn't even talking. Just like GIFs of people being really happy and cheering. It's just like, I can't even imagine what it'd be like for like the hardcore Naito fans who've been on him in this journey and got that invested in his character over so many years, for it to finally pay off, for them to give him that moment. And that's the other key part as well. They were telling the story, they were building it up, and they paid it off. It's like, so yes, I was able to predict that they paid it off, but that's because they foreshadowed it, they built it up. It was a good narrative. And like Sir Sam made a fantastic comparison with all because you knew what was going to happen in Avengers Endgame. Does that mean it was the worst movie of all time? No. No, it doesn't. Because then they'll be turning their back on the decade of story that they've been doing. That's kind of similar here. So, they've been telling it for so long that this really was the only way they could do it without causing a little bit of an issue. This was everything that I kind of wanted it to be, or that I'd read into it being. Just note for note perfect for me. That's why I give it like all the stars. It's just like, for me, there was nothing wrong with it. With the leg, I saw a few people bringing that up as well. Personally, I think it would have detracted from the overall story, because then the leg would have become the story, and that's not what they wanted to tell. That was just... It was a thing for Okada to target, but if he does the Seth Rollins thing of now for the entire match he's selling his leg, or whenever he hits any move, he's selling his leg. That becomes the story rather than what we got. I prefer the story we got, really. Doing the leg thing, I'm fine with it. Yeah. It was a thing that came back. For me, it coming back was a moment. Fantastic match.
Yeah, loved every minute of it.
Right, so, another match that I genuinely enjoyed that you've kind of brought up, and as it was the semi-main event, might as well bring it up now. And it's another one that had consequences as well. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Chris Jericho. And if Tanahashi won, it had been accepted that Chris Jericho would give him an AEW Championship match. Chris Jericho came down to the ring wearing the AEW Championship. He had it underneath his t-shirt, so you couldn't see it until he took the t-shirt off and he saw it in the ring. Also, his theme has been dubbed for the second Chris Jericho match in a row, because it was dubbed at Dominion as well when he faced Okada. A major assumption that that's more the studio who holds the license than it is Chris Jericho, because we've seen that before. Like Will Ospreay's issue wasn't that he and the band had undecided. Suddenly the studio wanted loads more money. It was just like, stop being greedy, you pricks. But if anyone knows the music industry, that's what they are. So I wouldn't be surprised if they want, because Fozzy are not unsuccessful and they're on a pretty decent label as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that label wanted a stupid amount of money because of the draw they reckon it is. And with AEW getting it as well, there could have been something there as well. Or they only let Chris Jericho lend it out to one place, so he had to choose AEW or New Japan. So obviously you go AEW. It's whatever the situation, it obviously detracts from it. It's something I get used to with New Japan. A lot more themes used to get that dub over the top. Like you watch the older product, the issues with the copyright are so grand that they just cut the entrances out entirely. That cuts out so much of the presentation of the feel of the show. You miss out so much, like even to a point where when I watch older stuff, I'll try and find the entrance on the internet, or on YouTube or whatever it's been uploaded to. Especially with folk like Great Muta, like Keiji Muto, his and Chono, like their entrances create such an atmosphere that it's really strange not to have it there. But the way copyright works, they'd have to fork out a lot of money to get all of those back, and I'm not really sure if it's that easy with Japanese law because it is different than it is in America. But yeah. Overall,
well, the other thing with that is that a lot of times when that happens, you're stuck listening to a theme that isn't even close to what their actual theme song is, and you're like, well, this really sucks. This time around with Jericho's, it was pretty much just like a generic version of Judas, so it really didn't make that much of an impact to me. That it wasn't the actual Judas song.
I think the only time it made an impact was when Jericho won. Obviously, the crowd noise just got turned off because they had to put the theme over the top, and you had the commentators and announcer fed through, but no crowd. For me, that's the only time it takes out of the occasion. Like, I'll still enjoy the match. Remember how much I enjoyed the match. You still get the atmosphere, essentially, of the entrance, even without the crowd. And if as I was saying, if the theme is close enough and has that same kind of feel to it, then yeah, have at it. I was laughing yesterday, because if you've heard Fujinami's theme, it's like, oh yeah, his theme is of its era, but it's not that funky. It was kind of making me laugh that the kind of music they chose for all of the legends yesterday. It's like, I see they've dived into New Japan's, I guess, porn music collection that no one was using. They didn't have any characters in that area, so just put them all on the legends. It was an interesting listen. And when Sano came out earlier and the Flight of the Valkyries starts playing, like, obviously all of us Westerners fans, like, Daniel Bryan? Is that a WWE thing? Suddenly? Like, no, Flight of the Valkyries is just royalty free because it's an old song now. So anyone can use it. It's like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. Yeah. But the match itself, it surprised me because I was going into it expecting like a veteran match, but I didn't know at what level they would actually take it to, and they exceeded it. Like, they generally, it's one of those where, because they're older, it's like, they might wrestle at a slower pace. If they hit a move, it might not look as beautiful as it once did. But I kind of feel like not much. It's one of those where everything just seemed to go right. Not much actually went wrong in the rhythm of doing the match. And in wrestling, that's really quite rare for everything just to go perfectly as predicted or as planned. And for me, the moment was when Jericho hit the lion salt, and it was just like, oh, that looks amazing. It was just like, oh, even the line salt with Chris Jericho reaching 50, even the line salt was nailed. And that just, for me, that fed into the entire match, and it built really, really well. They did that thing again where they hit a level and they didn't really drop. It just built and built and built. And the final sequences as well, with Tanahashi doing everything he can to fight out of the Walls of Jericho. And the Walls of Jericho was never enough. He had to transition into the Lion Tamer, which is, again, easier said than done, given that Tanahashi would be able to do everything he can to stop him from doing it. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this match. I thought it was going to be fine and enjoyable, but at the end of it, I was like, yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed that. Like for the third year in a row, Chris Jericho has brought it in that semi-main event slot of Wrestle Kingdom. Kenny Omega match, fantastic. Naito match, generally really enjoyed it as well. And then this one here, this is like the perfect slot for Chris Jericho at the moment. For me, he's nailed it every year in this specific scenario. I wasn't a fan of his Dominion match either when he was like the main event, but in the semi-main event, I feel like he really works, and yeah, this match surprised me. I really enjoyed it.
It was really good. You know, like I said before, I don't put it in that great category, but I thought it was really good. And you know, I loved the Jericho versus both Jericho Naito matches. I loved the Jericho Omega match. This one is not quite as good to me as those ones are, but it's definitely better than the Okada match. And yeah, I mean, I loved some of the spots where like Jericho just would not get hit with the high fly flow. And I mean, he got hit with aces high on the outside, but not the actual high fly flow in the ring. And you know, every time, and of course, Tanahashi would not stop going for it. So you know, once he got nailed with a code breaker out of it, and the other time, you know, at the end of the match, Jericho countered it into the walls and then eventually into the Lion Tamer to finally beat him, which was fantastic. And you know, I had this debate with Jeff like a couple of weeks ago on King of Honor, where you know he thinks that Jericho can still put a 5-star match, and I think he hasn't had one in like a year and a half. He probably just isn't capable of doing that anymore. And I didn't think this one, you know, came close to that level, but it was still, like I said, really good. Where was I going with this now? I had something else I was going to say, and I just completely lost it. Oh, and you know, to me, these guys kind of mirror each other. I mean, I personally buy into the fact that Chris Jericho is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. But, you know, even if you don't buy into that, he's definitely one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And then you take somebody like Hiroshi Tanahashi, who is probably the greatest New Japan performer of all time, and brought that company back from the brink of destruction. It was great that these guys actually had a match against each other on this big level where it really is a dream match. And you know, that term is overused a lot, but in this case, I think it totally fits because you're talking about the greatest New Japan performer of all time versus, in my opinion, the greatest pro wrestler of all time. But you know, but in that conversation, at least, for being the greatest North American wrestler of all time. And so I thought it was great that they were on that stage in the same main event spot at the actual Wrestle Kingdom this year.
Oh yeah, for me, that was one of the things that led into me. The occasion feeling grand was that the fact this was a dream match of two of the greatest wrestlers of the past, I guess, 20 years or whatever. And for me, yeah, that really fed into it. And the other thing for me was the stakes on the line really added to every near fall, because whoever won, it was going to have direct consequences for us Western fans back home. And that, I don't know what it would have been like as a Japanese fan, but as a Western fan, like the direct consequences of every fall, it had me hooked. It was just one of those where, like, every time Tanahashi nearly scored a win, because I'm really up for a New Japan AEW kind of working together type thing. But every near fall, it suddenly had so much weight to it because of that. Like, the further the match went, as well as when the commentators are put over the stakes over the course of it, and it just gets greater and greater with every near fall. Like, I was really feeling it. I was just fully in behind every fall and right behind Tanahashi. When Jericho won, you would have thought, like, oh, because I was so behind Tanahashi, I might have been annoyed Jericho won. No. When he scored that pin, I was just like, that match was so good, I don't even care. The AEW thing, it's kind of floated away. But to be fair, it's not really floated away either. After the match, Chris Jericho was saying that because Tanahashi was like pushing the AEW New Japan thing, and Chris Jericho pretty much echoed it. So instead of brushing away AEW and New Japan working together, of him closing the forbidden door, as it was put on commentary, Chris Jericho instead, he switched it so he was the one proposing it and opening the door. I was like, oh, okay, that actually fits what Chris Jericho would do more than I had in my head. Because I've got current heel, pure heel Chris Jericho, but if we're talking Chris Jericho in terms of what his character actually is across the two promotions in AEW New Japan, it makes more sense that he would be the one to open the door, and it would piss him off more that Tanahashi was trying to force it open, whilst he was just like, no, I want everyone to put their egos aside and actually work together. I would love that. It's like, oh, that's a nice twist afterwards that also makes me perfectly fine with the ending as well. That Jericho then switching it so he's opening the door. I liked that. So, yeah. I was like,
yeah, because he's La Champion, and he's the greatest thing in the history of the world, and he should be the guy that's introducing the two organizations working together.
Yeah, like it wasn't pissing him off that Tanahashi was trying to force a relationship. It was pissing him off that he wasn't the one doing it. It's like, oh yes, I like that. It fits so well. Talking of trying to piss people off, I thought this moves quite well. Jay White versus Kota Ibushi. We've already talked about this a little bit earlier on, but it's another match where I was so into it. I was, because it's one of those where it's going to be a kind of momentum pickup kind of win for one of the guys. But the one thing that I've been really impressed with, one of the many things that I've been impressed with over this Wrestle Kingdom weekend, is the way they've booked Kota Ibushi and the way it's advanced him. So it's kind of like, although he's lost, in the character shift they've made, Kota Ibushi is now an absolute badass. And I love that. And that's what, over the course of this Wrestle Kingdom, they have done that shift over these 2 days. He's had a very clear character change, and like he's channeling Inoki's kind of turn off, activate the robot mode with the with ultimate resistance and, and holding nothing back. Just channeling that mixed in with Shinsuke Nakamura's, I guess the closed fist strong style that he brought back in the late noughties. Like mixing those together, it's an awesome thing to see. Mixed in, of course, with the Kota Ibushi, incredibly athletic, insanely talented guy that he is as well, on top of this new zone that he can enter, of that zone of being an absolute badass. But they did that, and they put other people over. He's the one who lost, but they still got him over as a badass, even though he lost. And for me, that's an incredible achievement. That just shows how well it's worked. Because if you look at it as, oh, he lost, he's been buried. Like, this is a prime example of that's just, no, you don't understand what you've just watched kind of thing. Like, Kota Ibushi had lost, and he's got some kind of rebuilding to do, but he's had a massive character shift. And that's going to have such big implications over the rest of his kind of year and run with him at the top of New Japan. And it keeps Jay White at the top as well. And of course sets up the fact that Jay White had lost to Ibushi. Ibushi had defeated him, clearly, multiple times. Jay White was done if it were not for Gedo. So for me, that's how they got Kota Ibushi over as this ultimate badass. He destroyed both Gedo and Jay White, just didn't do it at the same time, so that one of them had recovered enough to try and capitalise when Ibushi had taken out the other one. Yeah.
Well, again, you could also argue the same thing from last night's show, where Ibushi, the badass, was kicking the hell out of Okada, and if Red Shoes hadn't pulled him off, then maybe he would have just pinned Okada right there. You know.
Mm. Yeah, actually, in both matches, there was that instance where you're like, he's done. He's out. He's gone. And then Ibushi's kind of pulled away by something.
Yeah. And, last night I actually kind of chuckled when Kevin Kelly was like, okay, there's, let's see who wins the striking exchange. And I was thinking, it's frickin' Kota Ibushi. He's going to win every striking exchange. but tonight he showed that against like White would hit him with with a couple of shots, and then um, one like just jab blow from Ibushi would just knock White right on his ass and like out into Mars, and White kept trying to do that, and then finally, he was able to get the distraction and hit the flatliner German combination to get out of that. But I mean, it was like for like a good solid 3-4 minutes of the match, it was like White would try a strike and Ibushi would knock him to America. It was crazy.
And,
And then it was and like you said, it ended up taking distraction by Gato and then low blows to turn things around.
Yeah, and for me, I was trying to figure out like when Ibushi was on top, and essentially Jay White was trying to do the comeback and get back into the match. This was before Gato was really interfering. It was just White and Ibushi. Ibushi was like punching him down, and Jay White trying to fight his way back into the match. I was just kind of thinking, but I'm still rooting Ibushi and booing the hell out of Jay White, even though those are what the roles are, where it's Jay White trying to fight back into the match being destroyed. But for me, it's kind of reminded me a little bit of Ric Flair. Like, part of the Ric Flair thing was, of course, putting the other guy... I'm talking like NWA Ric Flair at his kind of peak of going everywhere, where he'd oversell just enough, where it's... I don't know, it's putting a slight comedic twang on it, and it's not too much where it turns into comedy, but it's just enough to remind you that he's the bad guy. And Jay White was nailing that for me. Like, he made Ibushi, when I said Ibushi came out like a badass, that's kind of why I've got to commend Jay White, because that doesn't happen if Jay White doesn't sell for him, essentially, to be that. If he's not staggering all over the place like he is, just completely out of it, and you totally bought Jay White was, like, he was done, he was out of it, like out on his feet kind of stuff. And Ibushi was just the no remorse, no emotion on his face, just going at him every single time. I've got to give my chops to Jay White. Not only were like the sequences when he got back on it, and with the Gato switching, Gato momentum switching moments, it wasn't a. Jay White was fantastic, obviously with his counters as well. Oh, and as you stated yesterday, he's now countered every move, as he did so with the Kamigoye. When he went for the knee, he just caught him and immediately transitioned into a switchblade. He didn't hit it, but he's countered every move. Every finisher, he's now done it. I think that was the last one. Can't remember if he did it at G1. But, chops... No, I've been saying chops the entire time. I meant props. My brain is completely gone. Props to Jay White.
When you said that, that White's the one trying to make the comeback, and yet you're totally on Ibushi's side. Well, that's the genius of Jay White being such a awful heel. I mean, great at being a heel, but just a guy that you really want to see get his ass kicked in New Japan, because he's been such a dick over the last year and a half. He's been such an absolute dick to everybody, and he's so arrogant, and he thinks he's always right, and the hell of it is that everything he says tends to come true. And so you hate him even more for it. So watching Ibushi just beat him in the middle of the ring was great. I mean, not win the match, but just beat on him was just a fun watch. And then you're sitting there thinking like, okay, Jay, so like you like to drop down and get out of the way of moves anytime somebody is about to finish you off, but if you try to stay down here, you might literally get killed. So you gotta try to get up.
And I really love the way how they did they told that story, but pretty much in that exact pattern, and the way they told it was he got murdered, like he did it, and then he died. Essentially, he got killed by Ibushi, and that was just like he was out of it, and it was Gato who saved his ass. So I loved the story of this one where Ibushi had won, he had killed Jay White, but Gato. And that was the difference. That was the factor. Gato was the one who swung it back. It wasn't Jay White. He was done. He had lost. And for me, that's just such a good... in terms of keeping the hate on Jay White, he did not win the match. Gato won him the match. And so even though he's got the victory in the record books, if you were to actually watch the thing, he lost. And I love that. It sets up so much for the future as well. And now they're 1 for 1, having Ibushi won at the G1 and now Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom. It's like, It's that long-term booking thing again. I just have to applaud it. It's
and I loved Gambino in this match as the heel commentator too, because it's like, well, if Red Shoes hadn't been laying outside the ring last night, White would have won that match. Yeah, but but why is Red Shoes laying outside the ring? Okay, that's right, because Jay White threw him out there. And it was kind of like reversed in this one, where like again, like White throws the referee throws Ibushi into the referee. So the referee is like out of the ring, and he's like, "Well, Marty, get back and get in the ring and count." Well, dude, again, your guy's the one that threw
I do apologise if you're randomly hearing a hum as my heating's decided to turn on with a loud so that's happening currently. But yeah, it's just going to be such a positive podcast as we're going like even down the card, but it is another match which was amazing. I loved it, really enjoyed it from like start to finish, and by the end of it I had that buzz, and for me that's the joy of New Japan, the joy of Wrestle Kingdom. You've got that buzz afterwards, and this was another match that did that, even though the bad guy won using bad guy tactics that are meant to get you to boo him. I didn't boo New Japan at all. I was just I had the wrestling buzz. It's just great. Another great feeling.
And that's the thing, and that's why, like I said, I felt like this show felt more like Wrestle Kingdom, because every year seems like Wrestle Kingdom, like it builds and builds and builds till you get that fantastic match in the main event. And this, and this year, like I said, like last night, because of those three matches that started off the show, that kind of like got me into almost like a fugue state, like not an Ibushi fugue state, but just like my own type. I wasn't like killing anybody. I was just kind of like bored at that point. Tonight it was just like excitement kept building and building and building for me, and this match certainly kept that pattern going.
And like in terms of long-term booking as well, it's now in my head what happens when Kenny Omega comes across this version of Kota Ibushi, who is not the same guy. Like, the man who can put aside all emotion, which is something Kenny Omega's struggled with in the past. It's like, even today when they're still separated, I'm sensing the things. Like, Kenny Omega's struggled to put emotions to the side in AEW. Kota Ibushi has had no problem doing that in New Japan. It's like, right. There's still the poetic similarities again now that they're apart once again. I love it. It gets my brain working. But yes, as I said, but at the start of us talk about the match, Ibushi lost, but they set up Ibushi's future at the exact same time, and he came out feeling like an absolute badass, even though he lost. It's like all the applause, like everybody wins. It's just, it's a thing of everybody wins, but in a different way, you also lost. So you lost Ibushi. He didn't actually.
Right. I mean, I would compare the result of this match to SummerSlam 2013 when CM Punk lost to Brock Lesnar. I mean, he lost the match, but really, I mean, the best way to say it is that CM Punk won that match, but he happened to get his shoulders pinned, and that's the same thing that happened with Ibushi tonight.
So yeah, for me, the big comparison for that would be CM Punk Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose Brock Lesnar, just both tried to take it to the opposition, but ultimately got pinned at the end of it. But CM Punk was made a star in defeat when Dean Ambrose was like not that at all. He just got destroyed. It didn't have that same emotion, and Punk Lesnar. That's a fantastic example. Just all because you got pinned doesn't mean you weren't elevated by being in the match. For me, that's what this Wrestle Kingdom did with Ibushi. They made him the main event guy up there. Like, he's solidly the number 3 guy now. Even though he lost, so technically it's Jay White. But, like, actually, if you try to think of who are the 3 musketeers of this generation, this Wrestle Kingdom was about making Ibushi that 3rd musketeer. And, like, all the applause, they nailed it. He is in that zone.
I tend to not think of New Japan that way. I mean, I know they've had that, the original 3 musketeers, and then the second set with Shibata and Tanahashi and Shinsuke, but I mean, I tend to think of it more as pillars. So, to me, these 4 are their top pillars. Then you guys like Sonata, NZSJ, and Lance Archer that are knocking on the door of that. But to me, I mean, those guys are the these four the four guys that were in the main events last night and that were in those two matches that were set up last night are the four pillars for the company, at least for this year and probably next year.
Oh, yeah, they're building really, really well. And actually, yeah, if you do look at this generation, it does make more sense that it probably isn't Three Musketeers. It's just that three of the four happen to be good guys at the moment. So it kind of feels that way. And
well, plus they're not really a generation. I mean, yeah, Okada and Naito basically came up together, but Ibushi's a generation before that, and then White is a generation after.
So yeah, White's more with like Sanada and Evil. I kind of
Right.
see that in terms of they're the next guys, and Jay White's getting the massive rub of like being the leader of the Bullet Club, who's in there at the moment. Yeah, they're already set for the future, which is crazy to think about. when I talk long term, it's like, yeah, this is your proof that already set. And there was earlier matches which did what this match did as well for different characters, and love it. But
Well, so I mean, speaking of being set for the future, you've also got you've got Ospreay, you've got Sho and Yo, and then Shota Umino once he comes back next year. Talking about that guy's going to be on a massive roll too.
we're going to wait for babyface Jay White. It'll happen eventually. So next up, as we called it earlier, our least favourite match that we still genuinely enjoyed, the Never Openweight Championship match with Kenta defending against Hiroki Goto, and it was another one that I was a bit worried because I've seen Goto Wrestle Kingdom matches that I loved, like fell in love with instantly, and I've seen Goto matches which I didn't care for instantly, and I just kind of forgot, and I forget that on that Wrestle Kingdom. So when I see, for me, he's inconsistent at Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know which Goto I'll get. This was the Goto I loved. I for the first half of the match I was a little bit worried but they do kind of build it slowly. But they did a never match essentially. That stiff style that you've come to expect from the matches with this belt. Like completely different to the one last year with Kota Ibushi versus Ospreay. Like this was kind of back to what I expect from this title. Like bringing back that stiff strong style. And for me, the thing that really brought it, I love Kenta's like heel work where he doesn't. It's not the same as Ibushi in terms of no emotion, but when he's in there with Goto, it's no emotion, but you can sense that he's full of rage and anger. It's just it's so good. Like with giving no emotion, he tells so much, and I love that. But for me, my favourite part was like the second half of this match, the closing thing where they built up until it was a constant exchange of strikes and counters and reversals. It's the ultimate never championship kind of experience that I come to expect to Wrestle Kingdom, and they nailed that final sequence. That it was fantastic. It was amazing.
You pretty much covered everything. I thought. I mean, it's great to see Kenta back in Japan. I think he was wasted in NXT. He never really felt comfortable to me, as in NXT. He never really got his sea legs under him there, no matter what they did with him. And I think he's just more comfortable wrestling in his home country, or at least wrestling in that style. And I think that he has been fantastic since returning to New Japan. He was great in the G1. He's been great in this new role in Bullet Club. And I don't know if it's possible, but I would have much rather have seen instead of Goto in this role. I would have rather seen Shibata be the guy facing off against Kenta. So that it's always going to be a little bit disappointing for me that wasn't the case. But these guys really brought it, and like you said, especially like in the last 5 or 6 minutes of this match, it was absolutely fantastic, and I was on the edge of my seat with the strikes that they were throwing each other.
Yeah,
and then that GTW that Goto threw was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, he nailed all of his, I guess, the standard Goto moves where he just got the perfect amount of like whip and speed on them, where they just like, oh, that was amazing. Did it for all of them as well, and obviously that adds to the match when he nailed everything. And like for me, Kenta's one of those guys where he's completely reinvented himself. Now he's come over to New Japan. I love his character. I I love the character. I love the way that he is in the ring as well. That kind of boss. He was building. It was kind of. It's like he was testing it in 205 Live in his final days, like the final boss kind of character. But he is that now in New Japan, and with the backstory of Noah as well.
Forget about Fale. Kenta's the real underboss of that group.
Yeah, and it works because of his history in Japan as well. Like, he's not a New Japan guy, and there are quite a few people in that New Japan crowd who will let him know that. Like, at the end of Wrestle Kingdom, after he'd done the naughty to Naito, there were a couple of people in the crowd, you could hear them shouting, "Go back to Noah." I was just like, oh, the history, he's made it so relevant to the current now.
Yeah, and he always had the chip on his shoulder because he was never a New Japan guy, and so it's great for him to be in Bullet Club having that chip, where Bullet Club always has that chip on their shoulder where they're against New Japan, and now so Kenta, that's why Kenta fits in there so perfectly, despite the fact that he's a Japanese guy. That's not usual for a Japanese guy to be in Bullet Club.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so this match again, I think I just said absolutely everything about it. It was everything that it needed to be, and it was everything I hoped it would be when I was expecting maybe a little bit less. Worried it might be a little bit less, but it wasn't. It was a never Wrestle Kingdom match. And Hiroki Goto, he surprised me in actually winning. I thought they'd use this to establish Kenta, but it turns out they were going to establish Kenta, just in a different way. So, I predicted something, just not in the right way, like, at all.
I still am of the opinion, like I don't remember if I've talked to you about this before, Imp or not, but I would love to see them never go back to what it was originally meant to be. I mean, Goto's now, I think this is his 5th reign now as Never Champion. I would much rather that it go back to like what they started last year with Ospreay and Kota, which is kind of like bringing it as a young guys championship. Not and it doesn't necessarily mean it can't be a brawler championship too, or a bruiser weight champion, if you will. But having guys like like White, wrestle for it, or Sonata, Evil, guys that are younger, of the younger generation, which it was really meant to be and never has been. I think would be a fantastic way to do that. Like they had at one time like that the 30 under 30 belt. I think the title being that would be a great way, stepping stone for guys rather than it being for guys at the end of their career that just have something to fight over.
Yeah, because that's what it was when I started watching. I think Yujiro Takahashi was the champion at the time. And so, yes, Yujiro Takahashi has won singles titles in New Japan. He's not just the pimp. He's been a genuine top guy. But yeah, not top guy, a genuine relevant person in the New Japan stories. But yeah, for me that's more because there isn't really much of a division anymore. Like when they built it with Goto, with Shibata, with Tomohiro Ishii, Togi Makabe was in there for a fair bit as well.
Right.
When they built it with that, it was 100% relevant. Now it's kind of like, it's now and then bringing that feeling back. It's got a little bit of, I guess, nostalgia for what it kind of used to be a bit. But yeah, it feels like it needs to transition to something. And the title going back to Goto, unless you're bringing up people to go into that Never division, unless they're going to stack it up a bit, maybe what it stands for needs to adjust a bit again. Whether that is reversing back, or if that is to something else, or if they move the US Heavyweight Championship more focused to America, so that spot opens up again on Japanese cards. Something is probably going to have to change. But knowing New Japan, they're probably aware of that already, and there might be a shift or a new face in that division. It doesn't have to be a new face to us, just in that division.
Yeah, for the last 3 years, that belt has really felt like it's Goto's belt, and then whoever's his challenger of that quarter is. Or that belt. It's Goto, then he loses it, then he wins it back, then he loses it, then he wins it back, and it just felt like that's all it's felt like lately. And so I wouldn't be surprised if now that Goto has it back, if his challenger is once again Taichi coming up.
Like last year, I thought was a really good kind of use of it. That was different, where they used it to establish Ibushi as a guy who could win singles titles before he then won the IC title. So it's like a kind of ladder that he went up. Did the same with Will Ospreay to prove that he could be a champion in the heavyweight kind of world. For me, the next guy to do that with was probably Shingo. just because like he is another guy where it feels like establishing the fact that he can win a singles title is probably the next step for him, which makes the most sense. I don't know what you're going to do with Sanada and Evil, because it's the same thing. Really, you're waiting for that next step to happen. But with Naito winning the Heavyweight Championship and the IC title, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit more success for LIJ over the course of the year. Because quite a few people predicted his win early in the night. It didn't quite happen, but yeah. We won't be surprised if we see an LIJ Never champion later in this year as they elevate them.
Yeah, I mean, last year, like you said, I mean, this started with Ibushi and then Ospreay, and then Ospreay lost it to Jeff Cobb. So, I mean, it was right on that track where it looked like it was the younger stars holding the belt, but then Cobb lost it to Ishii, and then we're at where we're at now. So, so I would love to see, but I would love to see it go like the Shingo would be a great guy to have it.
So next up, the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship match as Jon Moxley defends against Juice Robinson, and generally surprises me because I was calling for Juicy 2 belts and that's not happened at all. Jon Moxley has retained, AEW working collaboration confirmed, and all of that, kind of the memes that come off whenever Moxley retains anything. So this was a match that surprised me a little bit, where I wasn't sure whether to expect a full-on brawl or like something where they keep it in the ring but be a bit stiff on each other. Phrasing imp. But they were, I guess, it was a mix of the two really, where they brawled but they got back in the ring and weren't too crazy with it, because Jon Moxley got his crazy brawl yesterday against Archer. This was a lot more, I guess, result focused as well, as they were trying to prove that they can beat, each one was trying to prove that they could beat the other, so it makes sense they didn't go too crazy or too far away from like in-ring action. And again, it was another one where it built really well. It was kind of a bit chaotic to start with, but the further the match went on, the more and more it kind of got closer to trying to just best the other guy and knock him down and get that pin. And Juice Robinson, again, it's one of those where momentum swung his way so strongly. It's like, oh, this is it. This is the moment where he then starts to hit his moves, and then he'll hit the Pulp Fiction. As you brought up yesterday, he did hit the Hand of God this time. After trying, he did, because a fantastic pickup that he did not hit it yesterday, and of course they built to it and then eventually hit it today. It was, and that then led to that really high-paced final sequence. It wasn't his day in the end. That did surprise me, but the sequence that led to it just made all the sense in the world. That kind of, he was maybe a bit too desperate. Moxley caught him, and then Moxley was able to hit the paradigm shift for the win, or the Death Rider, I think it's called in New Japan. It was, again, it's another match that somewhat surprised me with, by the end of it, how much I ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, it was a really good match. I really enjoyed the hell out of it, and it was another example of, one guy getting over and the other guy going over. We had talked about yesterday about how, Moxley was kind of in this role in New Japan against Juice to kind of get, his friend over to another level. To be the U.S. champion again, and that is, like you said, it isn't what ended up happening. But at the same time, Juice is definitely better for having this feud against Moxley, and especially this match against Moxley, than he was, 6 months ago. So, I think that this match really worked for both guys. I thought it was really crisp in execution. I loved the structure of it. And then, at the end of it, Juice hits the two left hands of God, the kind of the quick one, and then the big usual one, but can't quite get Pulp Friction on, and then Moxley hits not one but two versions of the Death Rider to finally be able to put Juice away. But it was like, it's one of his toughest challenges so far in NJPW, and it made Juice again look like a star in defeat.
Yeah, and for me, this entire card, because we've talked about it now for so many matches that they've done this, but it's that thing that you see quite often an argument on Twitter, especially when it's directed at WWE, because there's quite a lot of negativity in that direction, so you see quite a lot of defence go up. And the big defence that I saw over the course of this year was, how can you be angry at WWE when they gave you champions that you like in Becky Lynch, like Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, like they were all champions at one point. How could we not be happy? And it's a prime example of the what doesn't matter if the how isn't thought through or does it have any substance to it. and to kind of prove the point, just watch Wrestle Kingdom. Cause I was getting into this match thinking, oh, they're going to want to make Juice feel like a bigger star, and in my head I was like, oh, so they give him the title. New Japan have proved to me with this show, you don't need to have them win for them to get over, for them to be elevated to that next level. And for me, this show is the perfect answer to that question, which I see quite often. Oh, how could you be unhappy when the champions are people you're like your champions are going over? This proves that is null and void. The what doesn't matter if the how doesn't have anything to it. And New Japan tonight, the how had so much to it that the result in the end didn't really matter because they'd already proved themselves. They'd already made it to that level playing field. They'd been elevated, and Moxley still won, and he stays over kind of in that way. But yeah, it's kind of like
right. I mean, there's not a single person on that card that lost the match that was buried. You know, I mean, even Jushin Thunder Liger was in his last ever match. He was beaten. He got the hell beat out of him by two guys for the last 5 minutes of that match. So how did he get buried by that happening? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the match was, came out looking strong. They just happened to lose the match. I mean, it's not. You didn't feel like nobody going forward had a chance. I mean, even Kenta, he got his ass kicked at the last few minutes of that match by Goto, but then he gets it back at the end of the night by not only spoiling Tetsuya Naito's moment, but then hitting him with his two finishers, the Busaiku knee and the GTS, and then smiling to the chorus of boos and chants, like you mentioned, leaving the arena. So there's not a single person that left tonight in a weaker state than when they came in. Yeah. Even Tanahashi, who tapped out to Jericho in the middle of the ring. Well, why did he end up tapping out to Jericho? Because he got so insistent on using his finishing move to win the match. When we saw last year during the G1 that he didn't have to use that to win matches. I mean, it's just that he was insistent on beating Jericho with his big move that cost him in the end. Everybody on this card is at least as strong, if not stronger, than they were coming into the card, which is another example of why Wrestle Kingdom is year in, year out, the best wrestling show of the year.
For me, it adds to Wrestle Kingdom as well, because it makes it feel like it's not just a title match which is going to be a decent match. It's the kind of thing of there's a reason that they are on the card, like they've earned the spot, and by having the match get to such an even level for every single one where either guy could win, but it doesn't matter who wins now, both guys are over because the match has been fantastic, it's done its job. It makes the whole card have that special feeling of like when you watch, you're going to see the best of the best, because when you watch that match, that's what they tell you. They establish that these guys are so. It's not just a tell you on commentary; they show you it. They just go, "Oh, this is the best wrestling on the planet." They will show you that these are the two guys who should be going for this title because they are the two best. It's like, oh yes, it all feeds back into itself. It's awesome, and of course, as Jan pointed out earlier, throughout the card, like no one steals the thunder from the next guy. Like, you'll have awesome sequences, but the last match is the only one that gets that extra 10-15 minutes to really have the crowd going mental. It builds so well. It's such a joy to watch every year.
Yeah, I mean, even the next match we're going to talk about, the match for the British Heavyweight Championship, I was disappointed in the result. I wanted Sonata to leave with that championship, but was I mad at the result? Did I feel like Sonata got beat? No. I feel like Sonata, had out-wrestled ZSJ for a lot of the match, but he got overzealous going for his finisher, and then he got caught with a flash trap pin, and he lost. I mean, he was not buried whatsoever. He just lost to the better guy on that night.
Yeah, which is a lot harder said than done. Of course, we see different companies all over the world. I'm not just talking about WWE with this one, where they don't nail that, and it does feel like, oh, well, that sucks. But with this one, it's another one where we're moving on now to the Rev Pro match. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Sanada. It's another one where they were on an even playing field, and it was just who was going to catch who out. And Sanada was the one who made the mistake, and Zack Sabre Jr. caught him in a snap. And it was for me. I was going into this really expecting big things, and then they played the promo package. I was like, oh, third match gets a promo package. That's kind of cool. They must treat this as a serious thing. And then the promo package was, how do we get this match over and get people hyped for it? I know, let's just show them wrestling each other, because they're that good. So the big thing of this match is how fantastic these two guys are together. They complement each other so damn well. And it's kind of like, it's Zack Sabre Jr.'s style, that fast-paced technical style. And Sanada can also wrestle that incredibly. It's and they displayed it within like the first minute. It's just like when they stopped for that applause afterwards. It's just like those guys are so fluid and so quick. It is such a joy to watch. I don't know if this style is everybody's cup of tea, but it's right up my street. I absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're somebody who values story in wrestling above everything, this is the technical wrestling ability above everything. The story is that they are equals technically, and they show you that. They are such a joy to watch, and the fact they keep ending up in the same G1 block doesn't hurt. I'm happy with that. That means I get their match every year.
Yeah, and Zack Sabre Jr. is so insistent that he's the greatest technical wrestler on the planet, and yet most of the time, or I shouldn't say most of the time, but more often than not, he ends up getting out wrestled by Sanada. So that's really the story every time they wrestle, whether it's a tag match or a singles match. Is if ZSJ gets the victory, it ends up being out of luck that he does it. And he'll trap him with a submission, or he'll trap him with a quick flash pin, but otherwise, he's really, like, a lot of times on his heels against Sanada, when almost everybody else he's dominating most of the matches, even if he loses. And I loved the poetry in this match, the symmetry of it, where, like you said, it started off with those guys with them going so quick at the beginning, trying to get pins on each other, where that Asami couldn't even get down to make a 1 count, much less a 2 count or anything like that. And then at the end, they have that same kind of sequence going, but now they've worn each other down so much that there's a chance of one of them getting beat. And Sanada almost beats ZSJ with the exact same pin that ZSJ ends up beating him with like 2 minutes later. It's just so fantastic watching these guys perform against each other. They might be my favorite combination. They're probably my favorite mid-card combination in the entire planet right now.
Especially when they enter the pin reversal, like the quick pins exchanges. Like, they are. It's the pace of it and the fluidity of when they do a flip to do a bridge. It's just like, it's so fluid. It's like,
but even their submission stuff, like, Sanada reversed the octopus into the cold skull, and then the cold skull went into like a tombstone try, and then back into the cold skull, and then into the roll up pins. I mean, it was just fantastic technical fluid counter wrestling.
And as it is, like, also showcasing that British style. Obviously, I loved it. I was always going to. It was, absolutely fantastic match, and another one where in defeat, it still elevated Sanada. It's just the card did such a good job of that. Again, proving that point. All because they win a title doesn't mean crap. It is how they did it, and this is nailing that. Makes every champion feel significant.
And the other thing with this result and the main event result, it means that I saw somebody point this out on Twitter too, so I'm not going to take absolute credit for it, but Sanada is now the only member of LIJ without a championship. Because the other 3 guys won the 6-man titles tonight. Hiromu won the junior heavyweight championship last night, and now tonight it is Naito with both the Intercontinental title and the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. So could that spell the fact that Sanada is going to rebel and leave LIJ? Because now they've got 6 members, which is kind of, they've never really done have 6 active members.
Yeah, they've been one of those smaller stables which has had such a strong identity. They never really felt like one that would breach like Bullet Club have, where their kind of thing is that they're all cheeky, they're all dicks. So that's not difficult to really get across in wrestling. But LIJ, they are all so unique with such awesome kind of imagery for all of their entrances and everything, that they're such a awesome feeling faction. It doesn't feel like they should branch too much. And yeah, maybe 6 is one too many. And we could see or he just wins the Never title. I'm talking about somebody going in there. that just fixes that, I guess.
Yeah,
but
he and Goto would have a fantastic match against each other too.
Yeah, so not the end of the world. Yeah, wouldn't mind that happening. Especially if we
Not
use
at
the
all.
belts. Especially because I was talking about with Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay, where they use that belt to elevate people. Yeah, why not? If he's going to win singles titles, show he can do it with a much further down the card one before he goes up to like the IC or whatever. Or this is where we start to see a bit of tension. Does he go after the IC if Kenta goes for the main? I don't know what they're going to do with the double champion. Will Naito tomorrow just put the title in the bin? It's another possibility. But I don't know. I got the feeling with him just as all white that he was maybe embracing the IC title a bit more nowadays. Like he's come to terms with it. Like, yeah, I forgive you now, IC title.
I think it's been happening over the course of the last year, and I think now he's finally at that acceptance stage with it.
Yeah, another major part of Naito's story. That. Right, next up, the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. The champions El Phantasmo and Taiji Ishimori versus Roppongi 3K, Sho and Yo. I bloody love this match. It's the second match on the card, and it's like you've just celebrated the past, and now this is time to have fun with the present stars. And junior matches are normally fun, if not spectacular. But this one I absolutely loved, and I 100% put it down to El Phantasmo and Taiji Ishimori. I loved the way that they were being dicks and their heel stuff. Personal favourite moments were where they're essentially trying to one-up each other with how much unnecessary stuff could they do to then enter a back rake. I love that.
Yeah, that springboard somersault into the back rake was just awesome by Phantasmo.
Well, because they were teasing they were going to do a move and then just did a back rake, and then Phantasmo he walks the ropes and he does a massive springboard moonsault, and then just does a back rake again. It's like, oh, you got me, you dick. That was awesome. They did that again with the the corner dick stomp, where the person is in the tree of woe and they do a run up, and he and Ishimori both did a run up, and they jumped up on the ropes to then just put their foot on the groin area and just kind of rub. That was, and then they did it to show as well. They did a double tree of woe dick kick thing as well. It was I loved the way that they were assholes in this, and which then led, of course, to the high flying junior style later on in the match once Sho and Yo had gotten back in and they were trying to snatch back momentum. But when El Phantasmo and Ishimori were on top, I absolutely loved this.
Yeah, and it's another example of like how they were dominating a lot of the match, but then they got cocky. They decided they were going to mock the finisher of RP3K, and that ended up costing them the match because then they get hit with the Destroyer. Yo comes in to save the day against Sho, with Sho, and then from that point on, Sho and Yo take over the match and get the victory with that interesting, basically they kind of stole the Lucha Brothers finisher, but instead of the package pile driver, it's the what does he call that? The shock arrow? Yeah, the shock arrow into the double stomp to the ass. And that's the, I guess, is their new finisher. That the shock arrow is a badass finisher. I love that thing. So.
I would say I think it was Sho's flip into the Canadian Destroyer was awesome. So well done. And because it's second match of the night, it's like, oh, second match and there's a Canadian Destroyer. I guess we should brace then. But no, again, something else I love about this card was it was like, oh yeah, this isn't AEW. If this were AEW, it's like, right, I guess I'll just start my Canadian Destroyer tally then. We've not even had Pentagon Junior yet. I might as well start the tally. But yeah, not in New Japan. This was the only Destroyer of the night. I guess obviously the craziest spot was the reverse Rana in Naito and Okada. We didn't talk about that at the time. Reverse Rana, Okada landing right on his head. It's like, oh, you crazy! That's more crazy than the Omega Okada one, where afterwards in press conferences he'd say, "Yeah, I thought I was gonna die." We did that dragon suplex off the top rope. Wouldn't be surprised. It's similar feelings with that spot. But yeah, I love the Sho and Yo comeback was obviously awesome as well, with the whole story that they have never won at the Tokyo Dome, having lost in the 4-man and having lost 1-on-1 with the Bucks. They've never won in the Dome, and they've finally done it third time's the charm. Personally, it was great to move past this, and because for me, Show has got star written all over him. I am so excited for when they eventually split or do something. I'm so excited for what Show he's going to do. For me, in the Best of Super Juniors, he really showed that. I thought he was absolutely amazing. And I don't know if it's telling, but when they won the match, they didn't play the Roppongi 3K theme. They played Show's theme. I don't know if that's a little inkling or telling of something, or it doesn't really matter, and I'm reading too much into it.
I didn't even notice that. So.
Too much is his. Yeah. Also their entrance as well, where they played the video and they had like a hologram video of Rocky. And then they obviously come out and do the same entrance as normal, but this time with dancey shoes. So
yeah, I mean,
they got that.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this. I mean, I saw, like all this stuff we've been talking about. I saw most of it, but because this is when I was trying to get back onto the service, I missed like probably the first like 5 or 6 minutes of this one. So.
Which is actually quite a good way to transition to the final match to talk about tonight. We mentioned the Never Six Man and the fact that LIJ won. For me, that is all we need to cover. That is fine. I don't need to go to the Never.
I didn't actually watch it. I just know the result from the mentioning on Wrestle Kingdom.
I sleepily had it on in the background because when that was airing, it was like 5 something in the morning, and I'm still waking up, and I'm grumpy that I'm awake at this early on a Sunday. So. But so the first match of the night, obviously at the end of it, I feel like I was one of the lucky ones. Europe seemed to get like their server end fixed pretty smoothly, and I didn't spot much wrong. So Sam in Australia seems to be saying he was having some frame rate issues later on. I saw quite a few people in America saying the same thing. Of course, big issues with Jeff, which is why he's not here, where he couldn't sign in at all. I saw a few people scattered across America with the same issue. But most people were able to get back in because right after Liger got pinned by Hiromu, spoilers, but he when they do the heart to heart a bit with Hiromu and Liger, and before anything really happens, the stream dies, and it's amazing. Like the whole English stream just kaputs, and most of the Westerners, like me, I not only did my stream die, but I also, when I tried to reload the page, I got kicked out and had to log back in again. And me knowing how busy that server was at the time, I was like, oh, am I going to be able to get back in? I was lucky it loaded incredibly slowly, required like 2 or more refreshes just to get the video to load, because there was like I forgot what the phrase is, but it's like a level overload where there's too many people trying to watch it. Like even in his final match, Jushin Thunder Liger was too big of a draw. And he crashes New Japan World. But yeah, I was lucky. I got back in within a few minutes. I missed everything from them lying on the mat to then Liger waving goodbye. So I didn't get to see him exit the ring or bow to anybody, but it'll be on New Japan World. If I really want to see it, I can. But
yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad that I missed his farewell. His proper farewell is tomorrow, so just in case if you don't know, there is a farewell ceremony for Jushin Thunder Liger on New Year's Dash tomorrow. So that's when it's going to get emotional. So brace, don't cry too many tears beforehand, because you'll need them for New Year's Dash. But yeah, the match itself was a lot like the match yesterday, but of course it was a celebration of Liger somewhat, whilst this was more focused on celebrating Liger whilst also celebrating the present in Hiromu, the IWGP Junior Champion after yesterday, and his biggest rival in Dragon Lee. It was another really fun opener that was kind of emotional with it being the final one. Really the big pop is for Liger, like him coming out, hear his theme one more time, and you put over the current gen.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. I mean, I thought it was a really good tag match. I mean, like I said, this show, felt like a Wrestle Kingdom show to me. And what are you used to on Wrestle Kingdom? You're used to it opening with, the junior heavyweight tag match. This was a junior heavyweight match. Then following up with a heavyweight tag title match. The next match was the junior heavyweight tag title match actually. So I mean, I thought was a great opener for the show. I felt like, I didn't feel like it felt like a Legends match. I thought it felt like just a regular junior heavyweight tag match. I thought it was great that Ryu. Is Ryu?
Yeah, Ryu. Yeah, Ryu. Now.
Yeah, Ryu Lee and Takahashi like embraced their heel role and were just kicking the asses of Sano and Liger. Sano was barely in the match, so it was perfect that way. Where Liger was, the face in peril almost the entire time. And he never even got that hot tag out. Sano would come in and help him occasionally, but there was never a hot tag out to Sano, and it was just I felt it was really well done. I felt it was a great showcase for Liger, a great showcase for Lee and for Takahashi, and I thought like it really established everything it needed to establish. Like these are the young guys that are making a name for themselves. Here's the guy that's going away, and that we are the guys that are willing to do anything it takes for us to be established as the new face of the junior heavyweight division.
Yeah, it was everything that it was set up to be, and unfortunately missed the emotional thing that I was mostly tuning in for, but I'll get that tomorrow. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, Hiromu Takahashi ends up winning, and Liger puts over the current junior champion, whilst we also celebrate Jushin Thunder Liger's career one final time.
With the actual time bomb, too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that. So, what's the name of your new finisher? Time Bomb 2. Like, oh, yeah. It's not going to be difficult to remember these, is it, Hiromu? You made it nice and easy for yourself. Yeah, so if you couldn't tell, overall, really enjoyed this Wrestle Kingdom. Coming into this show on such a high, I've got that Wrestle Kingdom / wrestling buzz, which is it's a fantastic feeling, and you just reminded this is why I love this stuff. And for me, like the thing I'll probably remember the most is afterwards seeing people on Twitter like openly saying just like I've got the watery-eyed tear thing. They were generally moved by the story of Naito, and for those who hadn't been watching for those whole 7 years they've been telling this story, they did it so well in that match that it even generated that feeling amongst them. Yeah, such an amazing card. You can tell by the crowd as well, they got more and more hyped as it went along. As Jan was saying, it built and built like a Wrestle Kingdom card that we're used to, it does. And then you reached an absolute peak at the end of it. It's, yeah, once again, an incredible show to remember, setting an insane bar, a crazy level for every other show of the year to beat. This year, I thought this year's was so much better than last year's, and I enjoyed last year's. But for me, this was one that it marks kind of like perfectly, it marks the start of a new era for New Japan, because of course as well it's the Reiwa era as well, so it's a new era for Japan overall. But this in it as well, this marks this new era for New Japan with Naito as the champion. You've pushed it, elevated Ibushi, you've elevated Jay White, you've got all those future stars. LIJ are surely soon like Sanada, Evil, Shingo. They could all be main eventers. It wouldn't take much. They are all incredibly over. The future. So not only was this show amazing, but it did a fantastic job of telling you that the future is bright. Nothing but I'm ending this show with the wrestling buzz. So yeah, massive thumbs up if you're undecided. 100% watch this.
Absolutely agree that it's better than last year's. And I felt like you said, I mean, I think there was a lot of when Wrestle Kingdom ended last year, the results of it were kind of disappointing, and the fact that so many guys were leaving to start AEW was disappointing, and this has been a kind of a transition year with where they also kind of like pressed the reset button to 2017, and I think like this show was important in establishing like these are our guys going forward. We got a new champion at the top in Naito. He's the first ever double champion. We've got all these young guys that are going to do great things and establishing stuff for the future. Now we'll see tomorrow on New Year's Dash as far as like what they're setting for the future for this year, because that's usually what New Year's Dash does. But I think we've also got that establishment, like Kenta is going to be the first guy up to try to take that throne away from Naito. And I think that that was great to establish that as well, despite the fact that it ruined Naito's moment.
Yeah, and what happens with Okada and Chaos? What happens with LIJ if Sanada didn't win? What happens with Bullet Club as well? Will there be tensions of Kenta stepping up, or Jay White's perfectly fine with it? One thing we didn't mention as well, the murder smile Minoru Suzuki going up and attacking John Moxley. That set something up where I don't know what you were like, but as soon as his music plays, it was one of those silent where you go silent and you're just like, holy shit. Is something about to happen that I think is about to happen? And so Suzuki walks out to Moxley. I put out a jokey tweet just saying, because yesterday on this show I was saying, Juice Robinson and Lance Archer, that'll be a pretty damn strong headliner for your US shows. And then New Japan with the Hold My Beer meme as they booked John Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki, upstaging me just a little bit. It's a slightly better vibe for me.
Just a tad, yeah.
Just a tad. But yeah, the future's been set up so strongly. I can't wait for the rest of the year. Jan, do you want to plug your stuff before we say adios?
I don't know any of the stuff that Jeff always plugs. So. check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/Kingdom of Honor. We're currently doing like a Jessica Jones rundown for season 2. We're talking about Ring of Honor, starting with the earliest main event or a special event on the app, which is the anniversary show from 2011. So anniversary show number 9. We're going to be covering that tomorrow night on Kingdom of Honor. You can check out all of our other stuff there, where our highest tier is only $10, and you can get in on the fun for as little as $1 a month. You can check out Jeff at Regi Co-op on Twitter, or me at XanMan LOP. That's with XanMan with an X, not a Z. Stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows here. On Wednesday, Jeff and I will also be with you right after Dynamite goes off the air with Dynamite After Dark. Sports Entertainment is Dead takes place also on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, you have Imp with his LOP Radio Adventure. On Fridays, The Right Side of the Pond. And then tomorrow night, Jeff and I, like I said, will be talking about anniversary show for Ring of Honor number 9. I don't think I'll get any New Year's Dash in before that, but if I do, we'll talk about that. And then Jeff will give his opinions on the show that Imp and I just covered.
And I currently don't have a topic. I'll see how the wrestling world goes. But as Jan has plugged, I am live on Thursday with Imp's LOP Radio Adventure. I normally try and stream that here on the Laws of Pain YouTube channel. I try and do that. I try to get it to work. And Dynamite After Dark, I try and upload the next day as well. And if my schedule is busy, I apologise. But it's back on the train, getting everything actually up on the LOP YouTube channel and improve that as well. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheDamnImplicat. You can read my column every single Saturday where I cover the week of wrestling on Laws of Pain. And I think that's pretty much it. What were your views on Wrestle Kingdom? Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, in comments on the Laws of Pain site, wherever. If you're listening on Spreaker, you can send stuff on there as well. There's a button. And with that, thank you for listening, and we bid you adieu. Adios.